everyone. Welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
So my 17-year-old wanted to get, he asked yesterday if he could have the day off of school, if we could call him in for school.
Oh.
Like to skip the day of school. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would
Is
you
he a
skip today?
junior? Is he a junior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, it's mine and my girlfriend's like 1-year anniversary, and we wanted to like skip school together. And I was like, no, no, this does not rise to the level of like skipping school. I mean, I get it's probably super important to him and whatever, but his 1-year anniversary of him and his girlfriend is very different context for him than it does for me. Because 1 year ago, last fall, right around Halloween here, my daughter and I, this Saturday, my wife was gone at a quilting retreat.
Yes.
Right? So I had the kids for the weekend. And my daughter and I decided that we were going to go to Valley Fair because it was like the last weekend it was open.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're getting that planned. And my 17-year-old comes downstairs and he goes, hey, Dad, where's a quiet place for dinner? I was like, I don't know, like Applebee's? Yeah, like I was not in the mood to like really help him. And he's like, no, like somewhere quieter. I was like, okay, Perkins?
Perkins, because no one's there unless they're 100.
Right. Yeah, at 7 p.m., that place is really quiet. And he goes, no, it's got to be nicer than that. And I was like, what? I don't know, dude. He's like, yeah, where you brought me for my birthday. Well, so for his 16th birthday, I brought him to Manny's Steakhouse in Minneapolis, which is like the nicest steakhouse in the Twin Cities, right?
Yeah, right. So he's 16 now, coming to you and saying, where's a quiet place for dinner?
Right. I was like, okay, dude, what are you trying to do? Right? He's like, well, I'm just trying to go to dinner like tonight. I was like, oh, wait, with who? He's like, well, this girl. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is like his first date, right?
Yes.
I was like, okay, now I'm on board for helping you. I'm all in. So we find him, I get him a reservation, 7 p.m., a nice restaurant in White Bear Lake. It's not the super fancy Manny's, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Abby and I go off to Valley Fair. We had a wonderful evening. We got home at like 9 p.m. And I put her to bed. I was pretty tired. I went to bed, but I didn't go to sleep because 10 o'clock curfew. Make sure Ethan came back home, right? Heard him come home at 10 o'clock. And I was like, nailed it.
Yeah.
Right? My wife's been gone for the weekend. You know, I did something with the kids. I got Ethan set. First date. I'm super proud of myself.
Yep.
So Sunday morning, I'm up, doing my normal suburban dad thing, which would be like out in the garage, like cleaning stuff up, right? Kids are all still sleeping. I'm out there. I was like, there is an extra pair of shoes out here.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about that.
And I was like, they are a girl's size 7.
Oh.
So I picked these shoes up and I'm like,
I forgot about that.
Why would there be the shoes in our garage? And I was like, okay. I'm right now, I'm like making up stuff. I'm like, okay, so you wore heels for the first date and then she brought her sneakers for comfort and left them in his car. I'm like, oh no, there's absolutely no reason. So I went downstairs, threw open his door, flipped on his light, and of course, both of them were like laying in his bed.
Oh my children would
Yeah.
have been killed.
I was just like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, oh, we fell asleep. No kidding, you fell asleep. Like,
It's 10
it's like,
a.m.
Ethan, take this young lady home right now.
Oh my gosh.
Do
Oh
not
my
be
gosh.
surprised if her dad kicks your butt when you drop her off.
Yep.
Get going.
Oh my gosh. And everything will be well deserved if he does. Okay, so that was a year ago.
That was a year ago.
Forward, he's still with this young lady.
He is. So
which is shocking to be just think about that. It's a first girlfriend ever.
Yeah. But as you imagine, we have a whole it had never occurred to me that he would have her sleep over.
Right.
It never occurred to me.
No, of course not.
So yeah,
No.
so now with girlfriends around, now we have to have a whole different set of rules and awareness about what our kids are actually doing.
Yes. Yes. And it doesn't include skipping school on the 1-year anniversary.
Right.
Yes, precisely. Lovely.
So
well, I love your story.
There's my story about raising a 17-year-old.
Well, you're good at stories. You're always a good storyteller.
Thanks.
I always feel like this is something that I would like to be better at. So I think we should talk about storytelling.
I love talking about storytelling because it is, to me, it's like it's the most like primal, like first way people communicated with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when we were first communicating with each other, we were like, ooh, here's spreadsheets. Let's communicate.
And an email.
Spreadsheets. Yeah.
And an email.
And and it's not like there's old scrolls of, logical dissertations of things. It's everything was always just told through stories from person to person, and it just traveled through
time,
society, and built our culture through stories.
Yeah, around the fire.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of meaningful things about storytelling. Let me ask you something, because I think you're good at stories. What constitutes telling a good story? What's
a good story?
What is the makeup? What needs to be present for a story to be a good story?
Well, that's a great question. And there's lots of answers to that.
You're not going to answer that. On the internet.
I'm going to answer it.
On the internet.
I have an exact answer for that question, but I'm not going to. Yeah, but I'm just going to skip to the end right away. This is like a little dance where I'm going to explain to you. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, thank you. Oh, we're seeing under the hood now, folks. Everybody sit down with your coffee. Here we go. Oh, let me just get some chocolate. I feel like I'm going to need it. All right, go ahead.
So here's the thing that I think makes a good story. Something that you can relate to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's got a little bit of emotion to it.
Yep.
That like, and authentic emotion, not just like.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's some like, it's identifiable characters or people. Like you could see yourself as one of those characters in a story.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking makes a good story. And there's something like significant. I mean, I've been in the presence of people telling stories that are just like, I don't care about the story about you brushing your teeth.
Right.
It's insignificant to me.
Right. Or even if they don't position a good story well, it can be boring. Like even if it's good, but they don't know how to tell the story, it's not.
Although as a challenge, I could totally tell a good story about brushing my teeth.
Yes.
We'll do that next pod.
I know you could. I know you could.
But there's a lot of frameworks around storytelling. And I think when we're in elementary school, we're taught like a story arc, right? There should be like an antagonist and a protagonist, and there should be a conflict and a resolution, right? And we kind of learn these like typical elements of a story.
Yep.
And there's like, there should be a theme and there's characters and there's a setting and there's all these kind of like building blocks of a story.
Right.
And that's all good. There's some other ideas around stories that you've probably heard, like the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this would be like, for the nerds of us out there, the most classic hero's journey is Star Wars.
Oh, right.
It's Luke Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
And the thing with a hero's journey story is that it's a person that has a problem, meets a guide, overcomes some sort of conflict or problem, and then that is resolved, and after that they're like a new person.
Right. They're a new person.
But constructing a hero's journey story, or even using some of the basic kind of more elementary story building blocks, is hard. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, sit down, you're going to tell a story about something that happened this weekend, and you're going to like, oh, I got to make sure I got these 8 elements of a story here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It actually, when you're trying to build a story on purpose for something like a speaking event or whatever, it's really hard to do what you just said, to make sure you have all the elements in it. And it just sucks the joy out of the experience of preparation.
Yep.
Now, it can actually make the story really good, but
absolutely.
It's really hard.
The skill in creating a story. I mean, I'm sure we've all been in the presence of someone who told an amazing story, and you're just so sucked in.
Yep. And raptured.
And you're hanging on every single word, and it's beautifully articulated and delivered. It's a beautiful experience, right? It's awesome. And it is probably one of the most persuasive things you can do.
Yes,
right?
100%.
And I won't go so far as to say like stories are the most manipulative way you can communicate with somebody, but I think they are. Like,
they can be.
You can you tell a good story and it can change the world.
It's one of the number one ways that you sell when you're in sales.
Yep.
Telling
Speaking
stories.
Of manipulation. Sales.
Don't you dare.
Love salespeople.
I love salespeople. I love salespeople.
So here is my more simple version of storytelling that makes it way easier to take like a normal thing. Yeah. Like not normal event, but it just makes it easier to put it into everyday conversation. And it's mostly from a book called Stories That Stick by an author, Kendra Hall. It's that book. She talks about using stories in the workplace, which I think is super powerful.
Yes, I do too.
But I use it all the time. So her simple story
What's it
framework,
called again, JJ?
Stories That Stick.
Okay. Kendra Hall.
Kendra Hall. So her simple storytelling framework is you explain the normal.
Yep.
Right? There's an explosion. And then you explain the new normal. That's it. It's 3 things. Right?
I think I could even do that intentionally.
I do that intentionally?
No, I said I think I could even do that intentionally.
Yeah, you can.
Use that model.
Because, like, think about my story. It's like normal. I have a 16-year-old that doesn't have a girlfriend, and I went to Valley Fair, and it was just a normal weekend.
And then there was explosion.
Flipping on their lights, getting a surprise. Right? That's the explosion. And then new normal. Now we have to. Now we're living with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. An extended
now we're
family
parenting
member.
a 17-year-old with a girlfriend instead of without a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And we've all gone through that.
Yep. And then there's little bits of that story that, not that we super dissect that one, but things I like to do is I like to, when I'm telling a story, especially before that explosion or during that explosion, you get some like one extremely specific detail like the shoes were size 7. Like your brain, right? Your brain was like in my garage as you're maybe like,
Yeah,
as I was
right.
talking about
That's true.
cleaning it. And then I was like, shoes that are size 7, super. And you just focused right in on a pair of shoes, I bet.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then from that detail, instant explosion to finding them in bed together. Right? So that little push and pull is a fun element. Is like a fun thing to put into your stories. So, but it's easy. It's like, what's my day-to-day now? What's my normal now? What's a thing that caused a big change? And then what's life like after that?
I feel like it's just too simple. I feel like it's too simple.
It is. That's why it works. That's why you can remember to do it. So when telling stories to other people, obviously that's a fun skill to develop.
Yeah,
and
it
actually,
It is a fun skill.
I appreciate your comment that I'm good at telling stories.
Yeah.
I will tell you that particular story I just told, I've told a bunch of times, so obviously I can tell it pretty well. But I have massaged that story.
Yeah.
Over the course of telling it, like
maybe
a dozen times. Like it gets a little bit more succinct. I can punch it right at the right spots a little bit better. So the other thing about telling stories, if you want to have a well-developed story that you just kind of like, whatever, whip out at a party,
Yeah,
you have to go through a few reps on it.
you do.
It's not like you can tell an amazing story about something that happened to you one time and it'll be awesome. You actually have to take the craft of storytelling as like an iterative process where you refine it over time and you test it against your audience.
Do you remember when I won that award with the John Maxwell team several years ago? And I went on stage with John and he interviewed me about the award that I won was good customer service, like having good customer service, like that as an art. And that whole experience of going on stage with John, him interviewing me and asking me to tell a story that illustrates good customer service. Now, it looked, the background of this, but it looked, and by the way, it was in front of 4,000 people. Okay. And many of them were my peers, so no pressure. And I'm with John Maxwell. Hello. One of the greatest speakers that's ever been.
Yeah. Yes, you better tell a really good story.
Yeah. And you better not mess up. So, but what's interesting about that is the stage presence of that. This is a really extreme example, but the stage presence of that made it seem effortless, like it was just a conversation. We were at a high top table, him on one chair, me on the other, and it made it seem seamless. But know that the story itself was crafted with my speaking coach. And it was re-videoed because you did the videos at least 10 or 15 times. I then flew there and had practice rounds with and it was a 3-minute bit. So, in the day-to-days, like I tell stories all the time when I'm not thinking about it, but you use stories more intentionally just in your workplace. The only time I feel like I'm super intentional about a story is a speaking event or something when I really have to be focused in on it. But that single example, like as you're talking, it's like the better you are at telling the story, the more impact that you will have, and you don't lose anybody, depending on, especially what you're trying to accomplish in the story.
Yeah. And my experience is that you can tell people things, right? Like you can tell facts and you can tell even anecdotes about things.
Yeah.
And you can make your case through, spreadsheets and logical thinking and more, there's almost like popular, I would say culture, but certainly in work, it's like you should present things in a structured, logical way, like we're all scientists or something. Well, Like,
Right.
I bet, you know, but that's not how people work.
No, it
Like,
isn't.
it's like computers and our sort of information ages turned us into like
Robotic.
pretending we're robots. Yeah, and we're not. And
Yeah.
like you said, the best way to sell, the best way to motivate your team, the best way to get your message across
Yeah.
is to get it into story format. And
That's so
I
good.
think we're really out of practice with it as
I
a
do too.
society because we've kind of been trained into, even from school, it's like, give me a book report,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I wrote more book reports than I wrote stories in school.
Same.
So that
Yes.
would be the problem.
Yeah. Encyclopedia Britannicas. Those aren't hardly around anymore because now we have the Google. But remember those?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I have a question for you.
Mhm.
How do you think empathy plays into the ability to tell a good story? So you're using this model. You use this model of something
Yep.
normal, explosion, new normal.
Yep.
How does the human emotion play into that, or an empathy play into that? I know that's a specific,
Well,
but
yeah, that's a pretty good question. Well, on the story receivers side,
yeah,
well, my hope is when I tell a story to you
yeah,
that you were empathetic
mm,
of my position being a dad with a kid who
yeah,
did something like pretty bad, right?
right,
Or at least
yeah,
is
right,
really pushing his boundaries, right? And you can empathize with how I was feeling
yeah,
in
yeah,
that moment.
totally,
So to me, if I want you to feel closer to me,
right,
telling a story that brings like a shared emotion
yeah.
creates more empathy.
So I agree, and this is really interesting. So I took one of those Gallup, those strengths.
I like this. We have video and Melissa just put her glasses on, so she's about to drop some knowledge bombs.
No, I'm not. I was just gonna say I took one of those Strengths Finder for leaders. They have this whole suite of products now for Strengths Finder with leaders, and I love taking assessments. I've taken gazillions of them, being in the role I'm in. But one of my top 5 was empathy. And as I was reading it, I knew we were going to be talking about storytelling. I didn't know the context at all because you said, I got this great idea, let's roll on it. And we do that a lot of times, right? But I highlighted something, not because I think I'm special. I'm not reading it for that reason, but it got me thinking about storytelling and understanding good stories. In the empathy category, which was one of my top 5s, it says, this instinctive ability to understand is powerful. You hear the unvoiced questions, you anticipate the need. Where others grapple for words, you seem to find the right words and the right tone. You help people find the right phrases to express their feelings to themselves as well as to others. You give them voice to their emotional life. And I started thinking, wow, like that to me is that single trait of empathy seems like it would be invaluable to connect that to storytelling, because it's all about connecting the emotions and the words in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah. Have you ever like opened up Microsoft Excel and seen like a table of like 4,000 numbers and just been overwhelmed with emotion?
Yes, but probably
like I feel
not
so
the
connected to this spreadsheet.
My emotion is more like absolute terror. Get me out. I don't like Excel. Yeah.
But yeah, we even do that like when we're reviewing numbers at work. I say all the time, you got to tell me the story of this spreadsheet.
Oh,
What's the
that's so
story of this
good.
spreadsheet? Because then it gets people to explain what the actual meaning of this stuff is.
Oh,
not
so you're
just the
translating.
data.
So you're taking even natural data points in life and able to translate it into more of a storytelling energy.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think we
because
could all
again,
do that.
people don't get it. I mean, it just the data-driven approach doesn't incite any passion.
Yeah. Okay, so if somebody wants to get better at storytelling, just day to day or in their workplace or working with people, like what do you recommend? What do you think are some
I recommend
simple,
just doing it more,
just doing it
but be a
more?
little more like purposeful about it, right? Like,
Got
not
it.
everyone needs to be well. A lot of storytelling that I encounter is more like rambling,
Yes.
right? Like,
Right.
give me this
Get to the
long,
point.
drawn out like story about nothing that happened to me this morning. But there's a couple things. Be observant.
Hmm.
There are a lot of really amazing stories about things right in front of us.
Yeah.
Right. I was joking that I could make a story about brushing my teeth in the morning,
Yeah.
but with the right observation and
Hmm.
the right framing,
Yeah.
there are there's stories all over the place. So just looking for them,
Right.
right? And what you're really looking for is like, is there a bit of emotion? Is there some things that someone else could relate with,
Yeah.
like relate to me emotionally? Um, and is there like just one little edge of something funny, unexpected, unorthodox that then made me change a little bit?
Oh, got it.
Because
Yeah.
people love to see the change, right?
Yeah.
So observing that stuff and then being purposeful and trying to turn that into a little story nugget
Yeah.
and try it on multiple people
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and try
That's
to keep
good.
it as succinct as possible,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Use as few words because
Yeah,
the
that's true.
act of trying to compress it into
Oh,
something
yeah.
as small as possible
Mm-hmm.
is
That's the
hard,
power.
but also, but it also gets like the essence out. It's
Yes.
like concentrate, right? You
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
it to be really concentrated.
I love it.
So
That's
those are
so
the
good.
three things I would do. Just be observant, be succinct, and try it out on multiple
Yeah.
audiences and see
Practice.
what sticks.
You're right, though. And I mean, I think it is just a really binding thing for human beings, just telling stories. And we love to listen to a good story. You know, people
Hmm.
love and lean into a good story. So yeah, I love it. And you are really good at you always, another thing that you didn't really say, but you always have in your really good stories when you're not thinking about it, you always have a little element of surprise.
Yeah.
You always like throw in a little, like you wait till the person's leaning into what you're going to say, and then you'll like drop something that's like a surprise. So that's always fun too.
Thank you.
Try it out, guys. It's fun.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.